It was, of course, a matter of time before also TEDxVeghel would put a military on the stage. They look good, don't they? But they also very often have a story, often about their experiences, mostly from deployments far away, about the achievements, about the challenges, about the risks, about the dangers, about dilemmas, traumas, or other injuries. I can tell you one thing, it's never fun. It's always serious. And today is no different. Today I will take you with me to the Black Sea. Some of you might think of a cruise, but through the eyes of the soldier, this is the southeast border of the NATO area. An area full of actual and potential conflicts, a lot of tension, an area where country jerk takes place, where muscles are shown, an area where lines are crossed, where borders are shifted by force. So it's no cruise. But rest assured, we are not alone. We are going with a maritime task group, an international group of frigates, and we are called the Standing NATO Maritime Group 2. Under the flag of NATO, and NATO can use us for jobs to do. Briefly about NATO before I crack on. Our North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Today exactly 70.5 years old. It's an alliance, 29 allies. Initially we started off with 12. The Netherlands was one of those 12. We are one of the founding nations and actually strong believers in the power of our NATO. And NATO's goal actually is pretty simple. Collective defense, based on the principle that an attack on one of us is seen as an attack on all. And this is written down in Article 5 of the treaty. This can be pretty obvious. Imagine tanks break through the fences of Estonia. To me, that's clearly an attack. And I would not be surprised if NATO would activate Article 5. And if that's the case, we go to war. All of us. But what? What if it's not the tanks? What if it's here, today or tomorrow? A devastating cyber attack. One that paralyzes our public life. One that closes down our airspace. One that takes away the safety controls of Borselen nuclear plant. Or the Maaslandkering in Rotterdam. Or even worse, one that throws your and my private and bank details on the street. This is technologically possible. And that's a severe breach of our sovereign integrity. So it's an attack. But is it Article 5? We think it should, but if so, what are we going to do? This was easier 70 years ago, but the world has changed. So has NATO. So from an alliance, literally ready, waiting for the Russians to come, to a system of flexible response forces. We call this the NATO response forces, part of which can move very rapidly. In Dutch, the Flitsmacht. In English, the Very High Readiness Forces. And our task group is one of those. So we are manned, trained, and armed to be deployed for whatever is necessary. That's our cruise. I want to mention 2014. Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula. The world strongly condemned and still does this action. It's illegal, but it happened. The line was crossed, the border was shifted. A lot of tension is the result. So that's our starting point. Let's go to sea. We are in the Bosporus, just a few miles before we enter the Black Sea, in the middle of Istanbul. What a city. As many people as we have in our entire country. And to port side, the left, I see Europe, and to the right, it's Asia. These cultures mix here already for centuries. You can actually feel it. And a few miles further, I wonder where I am. Am I in Europe or in Asia, or on the Balkan, or in the Caucasus, or in Russia? This is a mixture of cultures. And to me, as a simple Dutch guy used to the North Sea, I'm less at home here. But I feel strengthened by the international officers around me, the team, the staff. They are largely from this region, speak the language, and know far better than me what is normal here, where the lines are drawn. I need this to be able to judge situations that I could come across rapidly. Teamwork. Look, it's a Russian. He's waiting for us, as expected. We will take the NATO ships for a stroll on a leash. We read it in the Russian papers. I'm happy with it, I'm used to it, as long as he keeps a safe distance. But it's probably illustrative for how Russia looks at this region. I call it as the pond in their backyard. And they probably would like to control this pond and the backyard, but they don't, because we are here with a whole task group, a credible force, and everyone can see it. I have every right to be here. I adhere to all international regulations. But I also realize that I'm adding already only by being here to the already high tension. I'm also enlarging the risk for misunderstanding and incidents. I will be careful, carefully watching how we are received. Meanwhile, I've ordered to switch off all smartphones, because I know that these ships could produce false 4G networks. It's tempting for our men and women. We are away already for months. Free 4G in the middle of the sea, difficult to resist. But I don't think it's wise to use it, although Russia might think differently. I'm eagerly watching at the reception of my GPS. I need this system to safely navigate with my ships and helicopters, and honestly also for some of my weapon systems. This is primarily a military system. Off the coast of Syria, we're always distorted on the signal. I can't use GPS. But here it seems to work. The Russians do it off the coast of Syria, but not here. I hope it stays like that. All right, we are going on patrol. I want to gain a better understanding of what Russia does, want, and could do here. It's part of the mission. But we're also going to exercise. Operating frigates is quite complex. You need to train to be safe and effective. So we are going to train. Train with our NATO allies in this region, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, and with our friendly partners, Ukraine and Georgia. A lot of training is about to happen. While we are training, while we are patrolling, I want to be seen as well. This is part of my mission as well. I want to be visible because the training makes us better. The visibility of it adds to our credibility in the region. It's my mission. So, while we do all this work, and that's hard work, almost daily I'm called from the ops room. We have the dots again. Dots on the radar system, probably Russian aircraft approaching us. I'm almost certain they do this almost daily. Low altitude, no transponders, approaching. 2. I'm tense because I don't know their exact intentions. And the situation develops fast. The bridge tells us that they see and identify the Russian aircraft. I ascertain that my ships could react immediately. I do not intend to use violence, but I must be able to defend ourselves. It's my duty, it's my right, like yours. I have a whole task group here, and more importantly, about 1,000 people that I'm responsible of. So I have drawn a line, and I have these aircraft warned every time. Don't come too close. They don't respond. They come close. In the very late stage, they fly past or turn away, very close to where I've drawn my line. Occasionally, I pause the exercise. I don't want to operate too close together. I want to avoid any misunderstanding. In my head is September last year when, all of a sudden, a Russian aircraft was shot down. The Syrian Air Defense Forces was aiming for Israeli F-16s, but were wrong. 15 Russians lost their life. This could have been one of my helicopters. We patrolled in the exact same area for weeks and weeks. So, an accident can happen when it's busy, like here. So I will be careful. You can cross the line also by accident. It's not what I want. I sense this behavior irritates me. It annoys me. I'm getting rebellious. But I say to myself, keep your head cool, don't get emotional. But I'm a human being like you, and like everyone else there in that region. We must keep our head cool. And in the evening I talk to the ship's captains. We have a teleconference, very modern. And I sense the same tension as I have myself about what's happening around us. We don't like to be played around. We must keep our head cool. It's good that we talk. These are young captains with a lot of responsibility. They can defend themselves, whatever my orders are. And therefore it's good to see that they haven't felt really threatened as of yet. For me, it's another occasion to give my command intentions, our mission. It's important. They've heard that before, but I keep repeating it. It's important for me. We're on the same line. We complete the first series of exercises. I'm not yet completely satisfied with the achieved results. We need more practice. But some of the allies seem to disagree. When I read their press statements, they are lyrical about what we do. It's the best we've ever done. And although partly that's true, I realize this is also partly a message to the population of the countries. These people are worried. They are concerned about their safety. They are concerned. They have a different history than you and me behind the Iron Curtain. And when we arrive in Constanta, we are personally welcomed by the President of Romania. We shake hands, surrounded by cameras. I see that he likes me very much. But he likes the fact that NATO is in his country far more. That's why he's there. He wants to give a reassuring message to his population. And yes, maybe one to impress others as well. We visit ports in Georgia and Ukraine. We have a lot of attention. We're on the news. I pay my courtesy calls to the authorities. I have interviews. Commodore Boots, when can we finally join NATO? I get this question often here. I understand the question, but I can't answer it. But you can feel the fear. Russia is very close. Actually, Russia is already inside. I do tactics, I do not do politics, is my answer. You need to address your capital and Brussels with this question. I'm communicating strategically these days. It's not my strongest side. And my press officer is closely watching me. Don't screw it up, Boots. I see his thoughts, and I don't want to. Because I realize my words, I could cross the line. It's not what I want. I strive for a reassuring message for the allies in the region. And yes, maybe a deterring effect to others, but I don't say the latter literally. Strategic communication, it's part of the game. We exercise with the Ukrainian Navy. We exercise in what we call swarm tactics, where they, with a swarm of very fast, maneuverable but heavily armed boats, hamper the life of the larger, bigger NATO frigates of us. And this tactics is often successful on short distances. But it was not on 25 November of last year, when Ukraine intended to sail with 3 of these boats from the Black Sea to the neighboring Sea of Azov. These seas are separated by the Kerch Strait. You might remember this strait because President Putin very symbolically opened his new bridge there. The connection between the Russian mainland and his new Crimea. A frustrating event. Frustrating for me, This bridge does not allow me to sail to that sea anymore. It's too low. But far more frustrating for Ukraine, because in that sea they have a coast, they have ports, they have people, but no free access, because Russia blocked. A short clash was the result, 3 injured, the 3 ships were confiscated, and the 24 crew were captured in Russia for almost a year. Where do we draw the line? For Ukraine, the line has been crossed. The country is at war. They lost the Crimea and the free access to their own ports. They're still fighting in the east. I think Ukraine has had it. Where does Russia draw the line? Clearly, they don't respect the sovereignty and the borders of the countries in their neighborhood. But are they satisfied now? What is the next step? What is the next step of the next Putin? Where do they draw the line? And where do we draw the line? How far do we accept denial of the use of the free sea? This is very important for the Dutch, for example. I am in the Black Sea because it's important. I am here more often, longer and more active. But I'm realizing that I'm adding to the tension and the chance to misunderstand each other. I assure you that we do our job right. But maybe the question is too, do we do the right job? Yes, if you ask Romania, Bulgaria, come even more often, stay longer, exercise with us, make an impression. But Turkey is more modest. They want a stable, quiet region with good local relations. Maybe a deal with Russia, but the weapon system plays a role there as well. Where do we draw the line? Where would you? After 21 days, we see Istanbul again. Now Europe is on starboard and Asia on port. We are on the way back. The smartphones are switched back on again. I'm happy with what we did and what we achieved. But I'm also relieved. Nothing went wrong. On the radio, I hear one of those Russian ships thanking us for the stroll on the leash. And it makes me smile, but I don't answer. I will see him again in 2 to 3 months. If you work for NATO in Brussels, you will be busy. It's brewing at the borders of the NATO area. We see it in the Black Sea. And I didn't mention Libya, the Sahel, Syria, the migration crisis. And from the north, from the Baltic Sea or above Norway, we hear similar stories. There is concern about the safety around our area. And also internally, Turkey's role. Personally, I think she's approaching a line there. But she's also very important and strategically important for us. She's a good ally. And also the American pressure on NATO does not leave us untouched. So you could wonder, is our NATO still sufficiently decisive? Will we act when the shit hits the fan? Will we act? Can we act? If we will, don't ask me. That's the political question. It's Article 5. We've seen Article 5 can be a tricky one these days. You can ask me if we can. If the government says yes, we will. We go. That's why I train so much. And that's why, if you ask me, it's good to see that we work very hard with more budget to get military better prepared. That includes cyber. It will take a while. Having your hair grown takes a lot longer than having it cut. And we were shortly cut. And we have some vacancies. About 8,000, I think. So if you want. My message is not to dig a shelter, to assemble emergency rations. I am not predicting a new war. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm from Veghel. But I want to tell you what's happening, because I think you don't know. And I'm concerned about these developments. The atmosphere gets more grim. And I don't mind if you are concerned about that as well, if you are not already so. That's what I want to say. And I asked you a couple of times where we draw the line. And sometimes it's very clear. Sometimes it's blurry, it's a gray area, or it seems flexible. I know one thing for sure. If a clear line is severely cut, the consequences will be large. I think we'd better be prepared for that. Yes, military. Politically, diplomatically, maybe economically, but also mentally. And that's not just for me, but also for you. That's my message. I told you this would not be fun. Thank you.
Thank you.